welcome everyone. I'm delighted to be here today to talk to four esteemed CEOs around the people-related challenges as a result of COVID-19 and how we're managing that in terms of productivity and motivation. So before we get started, I just wanted to reflect on what we are seeing in organisations. I think we've seen that a lot of organisations have got to grips with the logistical preparedness of the immediate threat and also the future challenges of the pandemic. We're now starting to see organisations shifting their focus towards the emotional support of their people. As leaders, responding and how we act and the shadow we cast is paramount to the health of our organisations and the future success of our businesses. And as humans, we crave two things. We crave choice and our perception of choice, but we also crave certainty. So when those two things are taken away, as is the case in a pandemic, what we do is we feel a lack of control. And during that, that's when we really look to leadership. We look to leadership for their emotional consciousness. We look to leadership to work together as a collaborative whole. But we also look to leadership to bring us connection and command, and how they command the organisation is really key in this time. So my first question is, what are our biggest people-related challenges during COVID? And what do you see as being your biggest challenges that as we move towards the new norm? So may I pose that question first to Sam?
Yeah, so our biggest people challenges, I think, first of all, were the simple speed with which we had to make decisions. And you didn't have much time to go through all the analysis, and you had to come up with solutions very quickly and communicate that very quickly. And just making sure from a people perspective, obviously, when you don't have all the data and you have to make the decision quickly, what are the unintended consequences for people of everything you're doing? And the speed with which you're trying to process all of that and make sure you're thinking about your people in every decision you're making, and you're making the right decision and the right choice at the right time has been really, really difficult. And you need people sort of alert to that all the time. Secondary to that, I think for us, the people issue has been the communication, because we have 130 staff in 2 offices, and we've always communicated really face to face. These odd people work from home maybe 1 day a week, but everybody is in a situation where they're together. And we have traders and market makers that are making prices and have needed to be very close by. So suddenly everyone being disparate and everyone having to communicate in a different way has led to some very interesting challenges about how we keep that motivation going and keep people feel really connected.
Yeah, thank you. And Henrik, do you want to build on that from your organisation?
Yeah, well, I think that the level of uncertainty and direction it took was, and therefore, how do you communicate with people on the back of that? I guess it was one of the challenges. We spent a lot of time on discussing, well, what are the right actions to take, and then the next thing you say, well, how do we communicate those? And we then planned out communication strategies and methods that we implemented. But I think that the challenge was probably at what point do we do what, and how serious is it? And I think we've gone all the way back to January when we first started sort of looking at, well, what do we need to do potentially at that point in time. The communication was unclear, as Ida also mentioned earlier. You have different type of information from different sources, different governments. WHO was out as well. Somebody disagreed with them, etc., etc. You said, what does it really mean for us, and what do we do? So I think that was the decisions we had to take on how we communicated was, I guess, the biggest challenges. And then how do you manage anxiety, uncertainty, fear? Some have that as well. How do you therefore talk to people around that?
Yeah. And I think that's really key. There's a couple of points touched on there. So from both of you around the key of communication, what to do at what points, and how we need to respond and adapt as we go through this. And then research shows that the first sort of 30 to 40 days of a pandemic, and what we've seen in China, that period is when anxiety peaks and when energy drops. So obviously for us with businesses in the UK, we're going into that now. And I think we need to look at the learnings from China and Asia, and really understand what we do next. So my next question is really thinking around, what are we hearing and seeing about the behaviors of our people in our business, and how have these changed over time? And I'd like to ask that question first to Ido and then to Donald, in your across your global businesses, what you have seen changed in terms of people's behavior. We start with Ido.
So I think it's as a technology business, the shift from working from the office to working from home was fairly easy. We already had the communication platform, and we were used to collaborating between the different offices around the world on a daily basis. So from a technical perspective, there was no significant change. We were ready to continue the business routine as normal, despite the fact that most of the people working from home and not coming to the office every day. I think that from the people perspective, it changed between sitting with their team in one room to working by themselves alone in the house. And what made it more difficult is when the education system stopped working. So people had to manage between delivering their daily tasks and still taking care of their kids. So I remember that when it's all started, every conference call or video conference that some of the people participating had his kid screaming in the background, he felt that he needed to apologize. And I think that it took time for people to understand that it's absolutely fine as long as a business, we continue to deliver on our tasks. We don't give up on certain targets or initiatives that we wanted to proceed, and very quickly shift from, okay, there was a period of uncertainty, how we use it as a potential to pursue and look for the opportunity in this crisis. There were a few days that people had to adapt to the new situation, but very quickly people understood that things continue as normal. So yes, we made some changes, but we as an organization continue and deliver and stick to our plan, and we don't do significant change if it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Donald, building on that from your business.
Yeah, well, I'd reflect some of the comments that Ido mentioned there about getting the business online. Although I've got to say, we got a sort of a preview of this 2 months earlier in Hong Kong, and we actually, some of the things that we thought would be easy, working from home, weren't quite as easy as we anticipated. So we had to, software developers you would think can do that anywhere. Well, they need the right screen, they need to have whitelisted devices, we need to make sure they get the right broadband. So we went through a little bit of that. But going through Hong Kong, we quickly realized that it was more of an emotional, a mental, and when they were stuck in their homes, a physical issue that was impacting their behaviors and their productivity. And for us, one of the things is this sort of event, a large part of our business has seen a massive increase in demand. So we actually had to step up productivity. So we've got online services, Broadway HD, they deliver Broadway and West End shows online. Suddenly it was the only way anyone could get to those shows. And we went from a few thousand subscribers to a few 100,000 subscribers. So dealing with that was a challenge at the same time as keeping everybody motivated. The first issue we started to see was actually the singles who were at home alone with absolutely no content, and working from home for them before had been a matter of convenience, but now it was very inconvenient because they couldn't get to meet anyone else. And I think it really struck me, particularly in Europe, is that first week that everybody went into isolation, and they got to the weekend, and we do virtual drinks at 5 o'clock on a Friday, and we had added drinks, and everybody signed off and went off. And the singles and the home alones, they went saying, "Oh, it's the weekend, great. I'll have nothing. I'm not going anywhere. I have nobody to talk to." And you could see how happy they were to be back at work on the Monday. But actually just keeping, we set up buddy systems. We've done a lot. We've enforced fun. So we're driving some events that we can get that going, because it has a real positive impact on morale. Morale has a real positive impact on the productivity. And as you know, I think I've said before, the focus in this kind of pandemic is look after your people first. They'll look after the customers, and the customers will take care of the business. Certainly at this stage that we're in, that is the most important thing. And by the way, Hong Kong, and as we've been around the world, everybody tells me week 4 and week 5 are the hardest, but once you get through those, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. Thank you, Donald. And I think you've both touched on some really important points there about how far we've all come through this as well. If we look back to when most people have just shifted to working from home, or even if they've worked from home before, and now the whole community is working from home, how everyone very much starts in that survival mode. Firstly, logistical, can we operate remotely? And then all the personal, governmental, organizational and social elements come into it, and they keep triggering us. And I think that's important for us to all be aware of in our teams, is that there will continue to be triggers, that we're all going through this. It's a very unique event to have every organization, every industry and every person, and as you're saying, everyone has a very different, unique setup. So all of those additional pressures, all those additional workload can bring a big burden to our teams. And it's really great to hear that you're also thinking about what prioritization needs to be done during those times. How do we manage the noise for our middle management, and how do we support them in any discontinuity planning as well as sort of moving forward? So my next question is around those strategies. So just building on those strategies to address the people challenges. And I'd like to put that towards Henrik first. So what have you been doing around some of those strategies to help people in this journey?
Well, we a lot of it, again, for us comes around the communication, how we deal with it. So I would say the logistical things, issues around giving people the right work environment, laptops, Zoom accounts, worked relatively smooth for us. And that was easy to set up. And as we went through towards the period where everybody was working from home, we very much sort of communicated, and then we mainly communicated via emails, because there was a lot of factual, quite directional information. You need to do this, you need to do that. But while we were directional, we also gave a lot of people the option to choose. So like along the lines of, if you would prefer to work from home, or if your situation has changed, you need to work from home, do that. Just arrange it with your manager. So kind of, on the one hand, say this is what we need to do. On the other hand, we also give some room, freedom for people to choose and make it work for their lives. The other, around that, we did various things. We did, like Ido mentioned earlier. We said we're more than happy to meet your kids. So if they need to come and say hello, are you working from home? Then let's meet them, and your pets as well. So if your dog is barking, then that's fine too. I mean, and that was in the beginning. I think some people were a little bit concerned around that. There are also other things we did, like so as we could see that people starting being furloughed or made redundant in businesses, and that impacted some of the families, we put in place a financial support package for people. So I said, if your situation changes short term, come on out and talk to us, and we will see how we can help you out. That was quite well received. Then when we actually went into the lockdown period, and we said to people, I think 17th or 18th of March, we said, now you're working from home. We changed the communication a little bit. There we went from the more directional email type communication to town hall meetings. So we do them not so on a regular basis. We'll have a town hall conversation, and that's more around a lot of the soft things. How are things going? What are we doing in the business? And then we try to play both what I call defense and offense. And the defense is very much around, how do we look after people? How do we take care of the issues, the uncertainties? And we've been trying to be very frank in that. Don't try to sugarcoat it. It's a very honest and frank discussion. This is the situation. This is how we're dealing with it. And we also try to play offense in the sense that what are the opportunities that comes out of this? What are the things we can do that is different? How do we act differently in this environment with the business we have? and that has sparked some interesting projects, etc. With teams has gone off and done things that we probably would not have done in a normal operation, and has been quite useful. So we get this balance between well, the things that are difficult and the things that cause concern, but we also say, well, we're also doing a lot of things proactively, and it's going to help us on the other side.
Thank you. Really interesting there to see all those strategies you've put along the whole journey, and as you're saying, the opportunities for going forward as well. And I was thinking, Ido, was there anything you'd like to add on that in terms of strategies you've put in place? You explained some of the journey that your teams have gone through, the things you have done to increase motivation, and things you may continue to do as we move into the new norm.
I think that in our case, we were lucky that the COVID-19 impacted very positively on our business. So we see very quickly a very healthy uplift in the demand to our products that are enabling people to secure their information and work remotely in an unsecured Wi-Fi connections. So the fact that people were extremely busy delivering the services, making sure that we provide high quality of service in greater demand, did a good job on the motivation automatically. And what I found myself that, at the beginning, it was mainly managing the uncertainties and the implications of the changes of the COVID-19 on each one of the locations. But very quickly, I tried to focus on where we can find opportunities. And I can give an example that we do a lot of digital marketing in our business. And one of the things that we identified relatively quickly, that a lot of industries like the travel industry withdrawn a lot of the budgets from digital marketing. So there was an angle to even increase our digital marketing activity and even better prices, because some industries reduced dramatically their activity. So and this is only one example. There are even more significant example on the M&A front. So partners and potential companies to do a more strategic conversation with them that were less relevant before the crisis. Now maybe it's more relevant because people understand the power of being part of a bigger group. So we try to focus on, and I personally, not just to deal with the situation or how we can mitigate the impact, the other way around, how we can take advantage and get out from this crisis even stronger than before.
Yeah, and that's such a great message for your people as well. As you're saying, not only have they been busier and productive now, but actually how the business will evolve and respond and adapt and look at opportunities going forward. So it's a great way for motivation and for your teams. Thank you. So I just wanted to touch upon the point of leadership and the importance of leadership. I think in this time, as leaders, our ability to be open, to be transparent, and also to show our human side and be authentic in what we're doing is very important. We need to connect with our people, but we also need to direct and show them guidance on where they need to do and what they need to do next, but also be open and honest that we may not have all the answers. And we are very much responding and adapting as we're going through this and learning. But super important is to think about building that trust, building that transparency, and very much role modeling the values we have in our organization to see the future success of our businesses. So I'd like to think for us around how your leadership style may have changed as a result during COVID, and how that might continue to change as we move into the new norm. So may I start with Donald, sort of thinking about leadership style and what's important during this time?
Well, I think one of the first things to note is that I think leaders and the companies will be measured by their employees, their customers, their suppliers, and their partners about how they behave and how they react going through this. And I think traditionally as leaders, we go straight into execution, we get operational, we get into data and numbers and facts. I think this one was very different. And I think you have to, put the employees right at the front of this, and you have to sort of be empathetic. I think that's the most important trait here. I think you've got to communicate even harder than ever. I mean, I'm traditionally I spent a lot of time with my customers. I spent a lot of time in our operations, wherever those were in the world. And one of my senses now has just been cut off. So basically, you have to compensate for that by going online, being available. I mean, Henrik mentioned, going to town hall meetings. So I'm doing every week, we going around every site or every geography, talking to our people. We're also trying to do the same with our customers. But I think the one thing that I've seen, you need to get a lot more social. So we opened up a lot more channels on Slack, for example, where you've got to get more involved in with your employees or with your customers. And I think you've got to listen an awful lot harder, and you're listening more for the emotional side of things than actually, the physical and those kind of things. So, and I don't think that's going to change for a long time. And as I said, people are going to value what you do and what you behave, and you're going to have to be really flexible through that listening. So you have to adapt. I mean, we talked earlier about taking away uncertainty. At some point, given clear direction of who goes to the office and who doesn't, and then how you react to things, being flexible to be able to adapt to that as well is going to become more important as we go forward. And a lot of little things. We did things like, obviously, we gave fruit baskets to, and then we did vegetable boxes, and then we just, somebody sort of put input into that and said, well, could we spread that? So we did a pay it forward campaign. So instead of you receiving a fruit basket or a veg box, you nominated somebody else to send that to. And the positive impact of that was just tremendous. It didn't cost a lot, but it meant a lot to a lot of people, which was a small thing in a very important time.
Yeah, definitely. It's great. Thank you. Sam, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Donald said. It's very relevant to us as well. But I think to add to it, the openness with which we've had to deal with people is very different to how we've ever dealt with people in the past. We've always been a relatively open firm, but I think going through why you made decisions, how you're thinking about things, being very open to the fact you might have not spotted something. And again, what Donald said, listening directly to everybody. So we have 130. So I've been trying to get through at least 20 or 30 people every day and spend 15 minutes on the phone and actually listening out for those things and working out how they're seeing it and what they're worried about, and then trying to react to that and communicate that back to other people who may also have the same worries. So I think that constantly talking to people directly, not via their heads of department or line managers, going directly to everybody, from people receptionists who've been furloughed to our settlements people, to our junior trader, whoever it might be, finding out the mood music, seeing what they're thinking, and recognizing their fears as very real, and dealing with those as a sort of authentic CEO that you would like your own family. So I think the openness is really critical. And what we're looking for, I think, from us as leaders and all the heads of department is this calmness and also a confidence that things are going to be okay, even if you might be slightly worried that they're not. I think you projecting the confidence and being utterly calm with whatever's happening and however worried you might be has been fundamental. And I can only really get that message across by actually speaking to people and having a visual with people, which is hugely time consuming, but I think really worth it.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot there around that sort of openness, listening, connectedness, authenticity, calm and confidence. That's great. Thank you. And I might just ask the question to Henrik and Ida as well. It'd be great to know if there's anything else from your side around leadership style. Should we start with Henrik?
Yes, as I think Donald said, that is really you don't really know in the way your employees and customers and so on react. But I think that some of the things that we did was we did, like what Donald also mentioned, we opened social channels and stuff like that, engaged in that so people could communicate. We opened a couple around how can you help each other, how can you give good advice. But we also had sort of a banter social channels, and some of the office banter, they say, well, we don't want that in the business channel. So we have a banter channel so they can share WhatsApp clips and whatever, and we all enjoy that. On the other side, we've probably been a little more structured in how we communicate. So, for instance, we have the senior management group. We meet once every day, and that is mainly just sometimes takes 5 minutes, sometimes takes half an hour. It's mainly to discuss what have you picked up, are there any issues we need to deal with, is there anybody that have any concerns, what is the feedback you get. And on top of that, the board members, we meet now every late afternoon just to pick up on items. So we get this sort of informal, but still quite structured approach of what is going on. On top of that, I would say what Sam also mentioned, spent a lot of time with talking to people all around the organization. And I guess working from home and having the tools at hand that we have today sometimes actually makes it easier. It's easier to jump on a development show and tell call and talk to the guys, what is you're doing, and do the same with the project managers, etc., etc. And I think it is actually quite interesting, and there of course also you pick up a lot of things, what do people think and what's going on in their heads. We have probably been lucky with the fact that people have been very busy throughout this. And while work for some has changed, the overriding picture is that people has been full on and therefore has been doing what they used to do in the office. Now they've been doing it at home in a slightly different environment, slightly different context.
Great. Thank you, Henrik. Ido, building on that, is there anything additional you want to add around, even from the board side, about how the executive team are working together?
So I think that one thing to comment that I found as a challenge is as part of our job as CEO is to be a problem solver. And we start every day with new problems that we need to solve. And during this time, I found that it's harder to solve problems, that it's harder to meet people, to jump on a plane, sit face to face and find solutions. And as it's getting longer and longer, it's just you find the new challenges. So you need to change the way you work slightly, and you need to find more creative ways to find ways to resolve the challenges that we have in the business. So this is where it's something that I had to be creative and find solution. From the management and the communication within the board, I think that as long as the communication anyway is open and supportive, it's better to share the challenges and keep the line of the communication open for bad and good news in order to discuss it and find the right solution together. With people, I think that the main thing is people are worried this time. They're worried that for their health, their job, what will be the impact on their life going forward. And as business leaders, we need to find ways to give them the comfort that both we as executives and the company is strong here to support them, and we are going to go through it together. And once they feel comfortable and they are part of a group and they are not alone in this, it gives them a lot of confidence and help them to do their job and just get through this situation.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate all that incredible insight to share. So thank you all for your time.
Thank
you very much.
Thanks, Natalie.